Ghostbusters?
Okay. I ran the shop that made all the creatures on the first Ghostbusters. It was in Marina del Rey. I guess it was, 1983? I'm not sure. And do you want me to talk about it more?
Yeah, talk about it.
All right, so what was the story? I was living in Northern California at the time. I was working for Industrial Light and Magic, and there I worked on Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I wanted to move back to Los Angeles, and one of the guys who helped form ILM, Industrial Light and Magic in Northern California, in Marin County, wanted to start his own company, Boss Film, and he got to do the effects on Ghostbusters in 2010. And so they needed someone to manage all the people, and I happened to be that someone.
That's fantastic. So, if somebody wanted to do what you did, how did they get into it?
Luck. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but how do you get to do it? Well, let's see, should I tell how I got in the business?
Yeah.
Okay. I went to UCLA and I got a degree in engineering. And then I wanted at that point to have my own electronics company, and someone said, well, you should learn how to design the front of whatever electronics thing you make. So I started taking classes in the art school, and from there I learned about this graduate school, California Institute of the Arts, and I went there and I started making sculpture. And my sculpture had to do with neon and liquids flowing. And I met this guy, Larry Albright, who taught me how to do neon. And he was Mr. Neon for the film business. He did the original neon in Close Encounters of the Third Kind and The Mothership and so on. Yeah. Anyways, after art school, I was going to be this famous artist, but I needed a job. And with my skills, people said that'd be good for special effects. And I looked around, didn't get anywhere. Larry was offered a job. He didn't want to take it and said I should go for an interview. So I went to some place in Van Nuys at 10 in the morning, and I went for an interview. And at 11 o'clock, I was working on some weird film called Star Wars. So that's why I say it's about luck. But it's really more than that. It's about connecting with people in the business, whether you're doing it from some social media group, being in film school, because you just never know when someone gets a job and they know you.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, we need another person I can trust.
Right. So stay in school, you guys.
Yes.
Graduate.
Yes.
Study engineering.
Yeah.
Study design.
Yeah. Right.
Watch all the movies you can.
Yes.
And try to be the best that you can be.
That is most important.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us about what you are most proud of.
Well.
And why?
What it is, that's a difficult thing because I worked in so many different things. I mean, I'm very proud of the first Star Wars. I made some original equipment that helped make. I worked on background equipment. The one thing I worked on that was actually in the film was the ACAC gun. It was like this trapezoidal thing on the Death Star, and it was a model this big, and I made the motor that made the guns go like that.
Awesome.
I'm very proud of that.
That's really awesome.
But then I worked on the movie China Syndrome, and I made all the lights blink on the control room set. And that was an incredible experience. And of course, Ghostbusters.
That's amazing. What was the hardest thing about making stuff on Ghostbusters?
The time.
How long?
Well, I don't remember how many months, but the film was just incredibly rushed. And when I originally started, there was this guy, Phil Tippett, who's just an incredible genius, and he read the script, and he said, well, maybe you'll need 15 people.
Wow.
And but as they started making the film, the director kept wanting more and more creatures. By the end, we had 55 people.
15 to 55.
Yes, and by the end, we had 15 people just working on the Stay Puft. So it was just a zoo. It was total panic.
A whole team just working on Mr. Stay Puft Marshmallow.
Yeah,
Man.
15.
15.
15, yeah. People were doing everything
Yeah.
else.
That's amazing. And, okay, so then tell us, what have you learned about your failures? Because nobody is always successful, right?
Yes.
The people who are successful because they failed in life. And they learn from those failures. So what did you learn?
Well, usually you keep your mouth shut. That's one thing you learn. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I think it wasn't that I so much had personal failures, but I think another category of it is I made many things for many films that weren't used. And what I learned from that is, I mean, I was judged by other people, and I was judged like, Stuart, you made that perfect little head for the MiG fighter in Air Force One, but it wasn't your fault that they didn't light it properly and you couldn't see the head. So what I learned is that you're judged by how you deliver, irrespective of whether it gets in the film. So that was a really good lesson. And the important lesson there is that when you do good work, you never know how that will pay off in the future.
Yeah.
In that maybe someone who you didn't think about gets a job on another film and he remembers what a good job you did on the head. They go, hey, call that guy.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. So your reputation precedes you.
Yes, very, very important.
Yeah. So protect your reputation.
Protect and develop it.
Yeah.
And work like a dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Any questions out there in the audience for Stu Ziff? Okay, Mr. Richard.
How tall was the actual Stay Puft from the movie?
Well, the costume, in the movie, I think it was considered to be like 96 feet high or something like that. It was a puppet, it was a costume worn by Bill Bryan. And so I guess, you know, what was he, maybe 5 feet, 8 inches high. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, there's gotta be more.
There's gotta be more questions. Somebody. Oh, back there. Wait, I saw a hand back there.
Were there any ghosts that were scrapped that you wish were made for the movie?
Please, I couldn't.
Were
hear.
there any ghosts that were scrapped that you wish had been used in the movie?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't think so. If anything, it was the opposite, because the director kept demanding more and more ghosts, so I had to hire more people. I actually hired people that weren't even involved with the film business to make ghosts, like the librarian. The mechanism was made by my friend and his father who I met in Pierce Junior College.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just crazy what they wanted.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. That's a good question. Anybody else have any questions? Sir. What's your favorite ghost?
You know, I think it was Slimer. The reason is this. Slimer was puppeteered by Mark Brian Wilson. And, you know, it was a costume he wore. His pants, he had black pants on, you know, and it came from his waist up and his arms stuck out. And one day, when we were supposed to film it, he was sick. So I was the Slimer that day. Wiggling my arms. And what it is in film, you have dailies. You shoot the film one day. Remember, this is before digital. This is even before having a video camera. So the film was developed the day, and then the next morning you would see it in what's called dailies. And they saw the way I moved, and I didn't work like Mark Brian Wilson, and they threw out the whole thing. But that still makes it the favorite one for me. Looks like there's another
You got a
question
question
here.
over here.
How did you guys make the ghost glow?
How did you guys make the ghost glow?
Okay, that is a very good question. what it is, the ghosts were usually shot against either a black background or a blue background. And then there was a process where, just think, if you were to have a bunch of slides of film, you know, where it's transparent and you shine light through it, you lay these on top of each other, right? Well, I'm making a very simplified way where you have like a piece of film of the ghost, and then you may just expose it. You take a picture of that slide of the ghost, but you make it where it's sort of translucent, where you sort of see through it because there's a slide of something else in the back. Am I being clear?
Yeah, so is it like multiple pictures of the
layers.
same ghost,
Yeah.
and then they make them in different colors and they layer it so that it looks glowing? Does that
Thank
answer
you.
your question? That's an awesome question.
That's a very good question.
Very good question.
Judy, thank you for helping out.
Thank you. Anybody else have some questions? I see hands back there. What's your question, lady? Yeah.
Are you still making art for pleasure or not special effects for film?
Oh yeah, I stopped working in the film business in the mid-90s, and I've gone back to making neon sculpture, and I've been involved with the Museum of Neon Art in Glendale, and I'm still making some neon sculptures at home, and I get a lot of pleasure out of them.
Thank you so much.
Oh, there has to be more.
Any more questions? Oh, we got one over here.
Was there any personal inspiration for the design of some of them, like what someone you know, or?
That's a very good question. And first I have to say, for those of you ultimate fans, let me get
Oh, yeah.
here. Okay, there was this film made, I'll get to your question. It was called Cleaning Up the Town, Remembering Ghostbusters, and it was released around 2020. And through Mark Brian Wilson, the puppeteer and Slimer, introduced me to the people who made that film. And it goes into all the history, interviewing the people. Well, recently, the producer of that film wrote a 577-page book of a transcript of everyone they interviewed. And what she goes over is how initially, like Ivan Reitman, who was the director and the production company, hired these known artists to come up with concepts of like the Tear Dog or, you know, Slimer or whatever. And then, so that's how they started. Now, with respect to inspiration, if you read this book, John Belushi, who was in Saturday Night Live and a very close friend of Dan Aykroyd, well, he unfortunately passed away, I guess, before they started on this, and he was really the inspiration for Slimer. And more than that, it was so interesting because we had like videos of John Belushi, and as they were sculpting Slimer, and as the puppeteers were rehearsing it, we would look at videos of like Animal House that John Belushi was in, and he was incredible. There are scenes where he could just arch one of his eyebrows like a half move while keeping the other one flat. And so he was really the inspiration for Slimer. Does that answer your question?
Sure does, thank you very much.
I know it's quite long.
So that book is called Cleaning Up the Town, Remembering Ghostbusters by Claire Bueno, B-U-E-N-O. And actually there's multiple authors. It's Anthony Zart and Richard Latto, but if you just Google Cleaning Up the Town, Remembering Ghostbusters, it's available for sale if you guys want to buy it online. It's $49. The shipping, I think, is $12.41. And the movie is called Cleaning Up the Town, Remembering Ghostbusters from June 2020. And it's not available on Amazon.
Yeah,
is it?
that's what it said.
Yeah.
And I think the book now is, I think it comes from England.
Okay.
So that's why
That's why
the shipping is so expensive.
that's why the shipping's expensive,
But
because
I'm learning so much from it.
yeah. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up our Q&A with Stu Ziff. Z-I-F-F, if you want to Google him and read his Wikipedia or whatever.
No. Let's see, IMDb.
IMDb,
Yeah.
go to imdb.com and put in Stu Ziff, Z-I-F-F, and you'll see that he worked on the original Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. He worked for Industrial Light and Magic, and if you don't know what that is, that was the company that was founded by George Lucas to do all the special effects for his movies.
Yeah.
I used to work for Skywalker Sound
You did?
back in the day, so
Wow.
yeah, I was there when Kiki Morris was the VP.
So was that up in Marin County?
No, it was actually in Santa Monica. And so I remember George Lucas was a really good employer because I remember arriving to work and he would have somebody provide breakfast. Because he really felt it was important to eat breakfast and work really hard for the rest of the day. I think he just wanted us to work really hard, but make sure that we were well fed. So he had a nice breakfast, and I was just like so impressed because it was like, wow, you get to come to work and have bagels and cream cheese, and like there's a nice little spread ready for you. And I was so grateful, even though I never actually met George Lucas in person. I was so grateful at the type of person he was and how much, those small things kind of showed what his priorities were in life.
Well, and my story is, when I worked in Northern California in Industrial Light and Magic, and, they were working on Jurassic Park and Dragon Slayer, every astrological sign for people who, as opposed to a month, they would have a spread of a table that went probably from the end of the stage of here, full of food. And it was like your experience.
Right?
It was wonderful.
It was wonderful, it was great. And food brings everybody together, right? So, but anyway, before we get off the stage, I'm gonna give you one last chance to ask questions. I know some of you shy people have been holding back. I see hands. Okay, sir, what was your question?
How do you feel about the ghosts in the subsequent movies, Ghostbusters movies?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen too many of them. So I remember I saw the second one, I saw the second and the fourth. Quite frankly, I don't remember that well, Gotta be honest.
Yeah. Any other questions? No more questions? Well, thank you so much. Oh, wait, we do have questions. Oh, see, shy people.
Oh, boy.
Shy people. But you give them the last minute, and then they say, I can't lose this opportunity. Okay, I saw 4 hands. Over there? Okay. All right, what's your question? The what, entire movie? How many people total? Oh my gosh.
Boy,
Do you know?
I have no idea. I mean, if you look at the screen credits, you start to get an inkling of it. And I'd like to comment on the whole thing of screen credits. It was George Lucas and Steven Spielberg who started the tradition of putting all the effects people. And that's why it will go on and on and on now. Before them, like if there was a special effects crew, they might list the top 2 or 3 people, not the hundreds of other people. So there could be, I wouldn't be surprised on some of these big films if there'd be 500 people working all around the world on effects, on the live action, on locations. It's an amazing, and that's, I think, the reason why they can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. You're employing all these people.
So think about it, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of people that are involved in making the movie, and some of them, like I went to DreamWorks and did a little tour over there, and they told me, like some of the artists over there, they spent a whole year just working on like 5 minutes of a movie, of the animation movie, and it might just be on the hair. So, like they are hair specialists, so.
Well, like whenever the Terror Dog would run, that was a puppet about this big, and it was stop motion. You want me to explain?
Explain
Okay.
stop motion.
What stop motion is, you have let's say the Terror Dog is that big, and inside of it, there's like a skeleton.
Your mic for you,
Thank
so you
you.
can move your
Okay,
head.
okay, so there's a Terror Dog, and there's a metal skeleton inside this latex rubber thing. And a stop motion puppeteer could slightly move, so what he does, he has the Terror Dog, it's against the background, he moves it in position, he stands out of the way, and they take 1 frame. Open the
One
camera.
picture.
One picture, and then
They move them
they
again.
move them just a little bit and take another picture. And there are 24 frames per second. So this means it could take many, many hours just to do a few seconds of film. And if they're going along and someone goes, oh my gosh, I forget if I moved it right, they just have to start from scratch,
Oh my
especially when we
goodness.
did it.
All over again. They
All
gotta
over
start
again.
from the beginning.
Because at that point, we didn't have any video, it was only film and a camera, and you had to develop to know what you did. So that was a very tedious process. And it really hit home with me, because like, when you look at the terror dog in Lewis's apartment, like he runs out of the apartment, or he goes up against the wall, it just didn't look that good to me. And I learned in this book that Randy Cook, who did the stop motion animation, was so pressed for time, or the whole film production was, he knew it wasn't that good, but they didn't have time to do it over again. So I sort of drifted there.
Yeah. That was a really good question. Who asked that question? Raise your hand. Wow. Thank you so much for that awesome question.